Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And after Toronto Ultra's phenomenal victory this weekend of the Stage 2 Major, questions have been raised as to how much impact their geographical location had on their success. Formally suggesting yesterday they should be forced to relocate to the United States so that the internet situation is fairer for the other teams. But intrigued to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Back to land, say OpTic a couple of days ago. We'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, wanted to mention this. For some reason, Twitter decided to verify my account yesterday. That was really cool to see. Just wanted to give a shout out to you guys for, well, supporting the channel, because without the channel being what it is, this wouldn't have happened, I'm sure. And, well, when we get to 100,000 YouTube subscribers, we can also get verified, I think, on YouTube. And, well, then we've effectively completed the internet. Thanks so much once again, as I say, every single video. Let's talk about this from the COD League. On stage together again, they say. Just yesterday, we were discussing, okay, a lot of teams are, well, teasing the return to LAN, and this is what the league say on the matter. We were kind of waiting for the league to say something along these lines. In coordination with our teams, we are happy to announce Call of Duty League plans for teams to return to LAN play at select events later this season. More details to come. Now, you might be able to read into exactly what they're saying right here, because first of all, they say plans for teams to return. It doesn't say plans for spectators and fans to return, right? So, you know, my expectation is probably that for the first couple of LAN events, there maybe won't be any fans. Maybe by champs, that will be a possibility. But even then, I would imagine that maybe it wouldn't be a full capacity stadium, for example. But, you know, we'll have to see how things develop. And on the other side of things, as no context CDL point out, events with an S, right? They're saying at least, well, select events. That, of course, being more than one, right? So you've got champs for sure, then we've got stage 5 major for sure, and then, well, at least if you're looking down these lines, and then you're saying, okay, maybe stage 4 major possibly, so we'll have to see, but of course, this is a pretty promising sign, and, you know, you can read between the lines somewhat maybe and see exactly what we might be looking at here, but of course, no announcement on when or where these stuff is going to happen, regardless, but I'm sure the pros are very much looking forward to getting back into that arena, as Atlanta FaZe say as well right here, counting down the days until we can return. They won, of course, their own home series way back last year at the start of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare season. And Zuma says this as well. He was talking on stream last night about, well, trying to figure out how the flank might work in a LAN environment, already working on stuff that we can do at events. I have a lot of plans, folks, so that'd be very exciting, I'm sure, indeed, to see. Let's talk about some roster stuff briefly before we get into that OpTic Toronto stuff. We'll talk about in just a second here. But the New York team would be dangerous with Sib and Paco, that being Hydra, gunning on the map while Claire is gassing, and a team doing what is needed. But, well, it's kind of interesting because we haven't had any confirmation, at least as of recording this video, that this indeed is going to be the team. Things that may be delayed behind the scenes in terms of getting Sib's buyout situation handled by, you know, New York subliners with Atlanta FaZe, getting him bought out and everything, given he is technically a substitute on that team. It seems to be taking its time. So we'll have to, well, see how things develop on that side of things. Also, though, on this side of things, as Parasite says yesterday, we'll talk about some of the Parasite versus the Subliners Academy drama later today. But Fire Jintroid Parasite ? Supposedly this is going to be Mackenzie Melts, that of course being Mac, onto this team as well. So it does seem like Mac is no longer on the starting lineup for the New York Subliners, so I'm pretty sure Hydra is in almost guaranteed. And whether they get Sib in the Diamond Con, that is, well, another question in its entirety at the present time. Also about the Florida Mutineers, CDL Intel says yesterday Methods slacked Decimate and Davpaddy teaming for the Challenger side. Now, this is kind of interesting because we saw that Decimate was getting trialed out with the Florida Mutineers. Now it seems like he's, well, kind of got a set team. We'll talk about this team and what they happen to do to the Subliners Academy later today as well in pretty interesting fashion. But Decimate was being trialled on the Florida Mutineers team with, of course, Slacker no longer on that team, benched off the squad, and now Decimate teaming alongside him. It seems like it's actually going to be Havoc that is going to be stepping into this lineup, right? Which is kind of the change we expected. Whether it's an incredibly positive one, that is a question that you could still ask, because as he likes right here, if you look at his Twitter, at Colt, you know, just saw that you're back starting around, congrats, now work hard and trust the process. Havoc, of course, liking this tweet, kind of implying that it is going to be back starting on the starting lineup for the Florida Mutineers. So that's an interesting change. Let's talk about this whole OpTic Chicago stuff. So they recap the Major 2 and kind of talk about the situation. Number of, well, interesting tidbits in this episode for sure. But what I wanted to focus on was the fact that, okay, Toronto Ultra win this past weekend. They have a phenomenal run at the championship. They beat so many teams. We'll have a look at the bracket here in just a second. But the question has been, okay, Toronto, we know they've got this kind of bell fiber, 1,000 up, 1,000 down type line they've always talked about for quite a long time. But last season, it was really a discussion, all right, if you're based in California, as well, Formal was, of course, for quite a while, then, you know, it's obviously a difficult time in terms of internet, given the server locations were largely based around Texas. However, this season, they've kind of upgraded where they have some servers so that, well, it maybe different teams get different degrees of advantages. We talked also about the Florida Mutineers last season, the fact that, well, this season as well, they have all their teams or all their players spread out rather than having their team in just one facility, which means that a lot of the time, one of their players is very, very close to where the server happens to be located, catered for whoever they're playing, because whenever you play a team in the CDL right now, you effectively do like server vetoes. So if you're based in Texas, you'll veto like, whatever server's right next to your opposition if they're up in Toronto, and then you'll play on a server somewhere in between the two of you geographically so that you have roughly equal pings. But last season we saw with teams playing from California, that wasn't necessarily the case, and the equal ping didn't really actually come to fruition. However, this season I think there are a lot more servers over on that side of the coast, so it's not actually too bad if you are on the West Coast this season, to my understanding, but well, I'm sure maybe it's a disadvantage to being in Texas. We've talked about how Texas is like, okay, it's the place to be, all the OpTic guys move in there, the Rokkr guys are there, the Subliners guys are there, LA Thieves are there as well, I mean, Dallas Empire, of course, are also down there, and most other teams are roughly in that region. However, Toronto are obviously further up north, based in Toronto, because they want to be that locally, solidified team. They've got their now facility in place as well. They're getting a stadium brought in as well. So Toronto are trying to super localize things, but Formal's saying, okay, I'm not sure they should be allowed to do that, because maybe it gave them an advantage in terms of the server locations they were playing on when they played up against the Texas teams this past weekend.
Was it 4 out of 5 teams that Toronto beat in Texas? Or how many teams did they beat in Texas?
A lot.
Yeah, I will say this, bro. We shouldn't be letting another team play us from another country. I'm sorry, bro.
It's like a team playing from Mexico.
Yeah, it's like, I'm being serious. Like, they shouldn't be allowed to compete from Toronto. Like, what? That wouldn't be allowed if they're playing from like Puerto Rico or something. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna go move to Alaska and see how your server is.
Yeah, right? Let's just play on Cali server all day. Like, what?
Yeah,
it's just like,
I
think it's unfair.
So how many teams are outside of Dallas?
Just them. Oh, never mind.
Outside of Dallas, like,
I mean, there's a few.
FaZe Atlanta,
LG, FaZe, Florida is like spread out.
London spread out.
That shouldn't be allowed
London's,
either.
London's in North Carolina
and Toronto. 5.
And Toronto, yeah.
So you're saying that Florida shouldn't be allowed either?
You shouldn't be allowed to be spread out. You shouldn't be allowed to be in another country. That's even worse than being spread out.
Yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to compete from another country. It just feels weird that you're playing a team from another country and you're playing a weird host.
Yeah, but it's still North America, and it's like, I get it. How far into Canada are they?
I have no idea.
Do you know?
Toronto?
Yeah.
They're close to Chicago.
Oh, okay, so it's not that bad.
It's like an 8-hour drive from Chicago.
8-hour drive from Chicago?
Yeah, so like.
I mean, that's pretty far.
Okay, what if I go move to the very, very bottom of Mexico, the very top of Canada?
Yeah.
And there's no servers near me, and they have to make servers in Mexico, and then we're pulling a Mexico server every single time.
I'm so confused because you said to the bottom and then you said Canada.
I'm saying if you just went to the very bottom of North America or the very top of North America. But the thing with Florida, they should not be allowed.
Florida should not be allowed to be spread out
yeah,
that.
we all know how much money these orgs invest. Get your team a facility, get your team apartments in Texas or all in the same spot somewhere.
Last year they'd have 3 on a Chicago server, and you're playing on Chicago server because it's the only server you can play on, and they have 3 hosts.
Yeah, they at the beginning of the year last year, they all moved to Florida, and they're like, wait, it sucks playing from Florida. So they all went back to their own home state.
Now, Toronto obviously played phenomenal Call of Duty, and I think it would have taken an exceptional level to actually beat them this weekend, given what they were putting up. But, when upsets like this happen, people do start to raise the question, okay, is there other reasons behind it? Is internet another factor in the discussion right here? Because as Karma says at the time, Ultra are the Texas killers. What did I say? Bell Fiber is better than Texas Fiber, says Pamaj. The only counter to Texas Fiber is Bell Fiber, says Exotic as well. And if we look at the bracket here from this past weekend, they beat OpTic 3-1, a team that, of course, is based in Texas. And then if you go down to losers bracket here, they beat Thieves, based in Texas. They beat Rokkr in Texas. They beat Empire in Texas. And then they beat FaZe in the grand finals, based in Atlanta. Now, I whipped up the old Google Maps. You know how it goes. And, well, as you can see right here, Toronto actually isn't, even though they're in another country, as Formal's suggesting right here, technically, it's not really that far away, is it? Because we've got Texas down here. I mean, this is Dallas, of course. The OpTic guys are based out of Frisco. San Francisco's over here. That's quite a long way away. And then Toronto's is very similar in location to Chicago. Now, I'm not really sure any teams are based in Chicago, but if the OpTic guys were to be based in Chicago or something, it's basically where Toronto is geographically. Despite it being in another country, it's not, it's not like you're playing a 0 from the UK, for example, thousands of miles away. It's, relatively close at least. It's probably a similar distance to San Francisco, but sometimes the map kind of is distorted here. You kind of know how it goes if you've done geography at school. But, North Carolina as well. This is where the London guys are based. Atlanta, of course, where the FaZe guys are based. And I think a lot of the Florida guys are in a number of these states. Someone's in Florida, someone's in Georgia, South Carolina, this kind of area. They're all kind of spread around this region, and that has certainly been a discussion. But at the same time, do you guys think that being in Toronto here for the Toronto guys gave them some significant degree of advantage this past weekend? It really just depends exactly what servers they were playing on, whether they're playing on a Chicago server, and whether, because of course the Toronto guys are going to veto the Dallas server, and the OpTic guys or whoever they're playing are going to veto whatever server happens to be up here, and then they'll play on something in between. But at the the end of the day, does it make that much difference? I'm not really sure why Toronto should have to, well, relocate all their teams to, well, a region like Texas. The thing that I think does make a lot more sense that they were discussing is the fact that, okay, a team like Florida or some other teams that don't have like a facility for their players, they should be forced to like, well, make them all go into the same spot, because we imagine that the current arena where it is right now, where a lot of teams are playing online, and well, at least the group play for the majors is probably going to be online into the foreseeable future, maybe next season as well, because maybe it makes more sense logistically for that to still happen, and then just of course have the majors in a LAN environment. And in that case, all the players being in one place this season has been great. I mean, it's not only been great for content, but it also makes it more feel like you're actually in a LAN environment when you can see all the players next to each other, fist bumping, this type of stuff. Teams like Florida, they don't have that. I'm pretty sure Seattle don't have that as well. They're kind of in a 2-2 split at the present time, 2 in Texas, I believe, 2 in Atlanta. And having this player split that Florida have was discussed last season to a great degree as well, as Slash is like, absolute joke, the biggest event in COD history is played from our bedrooms. And as Brian Saint says at the time, even with more servers, they'll always be unbalanced unless teams are all in the same location, as it was 5 versus 5 last season. Teams like Florida with a Bermuda Triangle location split will always get server advantage no matter what. The idea that they're so spread out geographically that whoever they're playing, one of them will always be sitting on top of the server. And Form was like, okay, well, maybe this shouldn't be the case, given that in an ideal world, all the players are in the same location, so that you can find a server which has, well, exactly the same ping between all the players, and therefore we're kind of in as competitive environment as they can possibly be, given the situation. But it is a very interesting discussion. I mean, here are the Toronto guys right here celebrating their victory from the Toronto facility up there. My perspective on the matter is they just played phenomenal Call of Duty, and I don't really think things have been too different otherwise. But, you know, you can see the bell fiber in the background right here, and I'm sure a lot of pros are kind of looking at this and maybe using that to, well, somehow explain away their victory this past weekend. But, well, as I see it, they just played phenomenal Call of Duty and, well, deserved the victory. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts, of course, in the comment section below, as always. Got of interesting things to finish off the video. This comes out from round 11 stats yesterday. Dallas Empire extended their round 11 winning streak to 7-0 following Major 2. This is kind of insane, the fact they're 11-0, or 7-0 in round 11s so far in the CDL. If they were like 3-4 or 4-3 or something, their record would look a lot different, because a lot of these were game 5s. But, well, as Crim says right here, well, as round 11 stats right here says, Crim is like insane in these round 11s. I mean, look at this. Crim and Claystar actually 6-2 for Clay. This is where the ice comes into play. Crim is 11-2 KD wise in terms of KD in round 11 so far this season. So that is pretty impressive stuff. Apathy and Assault also haven't died yet in round 11, so that is kind of impressive as well. I just wanted to finish off with this. If you guys have been, well, going over to the breakingpoint.gg/stats pages, you guys can find it. I'll leave the link down below if you guys want to check it out. But I didn't actually realize this was the case. But if you want to like go through and see stats for specific stages or even specific tournaments or even specific matches, you can go through and like, you know, hold down shift and click between all the games like stage 1, stage 2, so you can compare all the stats. And you know, for example, if you like to see how OpTic Chicago performed in the month of March, you can go and just well highlight their games from March, and it will update all the data, so you can see what their stats were and how they've changed over time. So thought this is pretty cool. If you do want to check it out, these links will be down below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm to know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.